My heart is just so full this morning. What a wonderful time of worship and what a beautiful response to Jesus. Well done. Well done for those of you who've responded. Well done for those who worshipped with all their hearts. Well done for those who have been Jesus to one another through this week and have spoken his words to one another. So I want to speak this morning on something that I wouldn't have linked easily with my brains. And that is a prophetic lifestyle connected to the thing of hospitality. And I think the Lord has given me this word for you guys this morning because it's one of the foundational things he wants to build on for this glorious thing that he wants to do. And that's entrusting the most precious thing in the universe to you as a congregation. So I'm speaking to BCC, BCC. So I'm speaking to BCC mostly because I feel this is a word of the Lord in season for you. That he wants to bring you into a lifestyle of the prophetic, a lifestyle of hospitality, so that in turn can grow into a lifestyle of evangelism and bringing people into this household. Because evangelism is not throwing a net out, pulling out a bunch of fish and letting them froth on the side. Hey? Fishes of men make disciples of men, right? They come into family. And this is not my thoughts. I've heard it from Donnie a lot. I've heard it from the Lord a lot. And I know the Lord's been speaking about evangelism to you guys, but I'm going to read you confirmation of that, which is just profound. So something that's very special is over the past few days, at times, especially when I grew tired, I've asked people from across different places in the world to pray. Please pray for BCC. Please pray for these guys. And a lady from Richards Bay, Madeleine, that's very prophetic, shared a word for you. Before I share that, I want to say that on Wednesday, when we arrived here that night, a friend of mine who has a little 8-year-old daughter said to me, Olivia had a word at community tonight, and I just wanted to share with you. She said she heard something, and then later she said she had a dream. She said she heard God say, go to Bethlehem. And I said to my friend, what? Have you guys been reading, about Jesus' birth or something? Have you mentioned to her that you're praying for me while I'm here? I mean, the day we drove here, an 8-year-old child that evening at community spoke about Bethlehem. Now, God has a thing for little towns, hey? God has a thing for little towns, hey? From the Bethanies to the Nazareths to the Rawsonville, where I'm from. Never heard of it. I know you've never heard of it. To Turkmenistan, where I was a missionary at a time. God to Ashgabat, that's got had 3 known believers in it. God is not a God that overlooks the little places. He also loves the cities. He wants to save, but he knows about Bethlehem. He really does. And her dream didn't make much sense to me, but she saw a dam with trees around it. And then I hear there's a dam with trees around it that had sewage pumped into it, and there's a dam with trees around it that had the fish stolen from it, and then there's a dam that gets your drink water from the Lesotho that's going to get cut down. So I leave it up to you to interpret all of that. All I know is that God wants to break out with these living waters. And he wants the people of this town, all who are thirsty, to be able to come and drink. And is it not his congregations in this town, the churches in this town, that need to be places of fresh, pure water, where people can find life and where people can find family? Oops, it's closed up on me. There's Donnie. Recognize his face? Mind do facial recognition. Sometimes early in the morning it doesn't recognize me. So this is what Madeleine said. A word for Bethlehem. Listen carefully, because this is a word to you from the Lord. I saw a person walking around and picking up a big river stone with the name Bethlehem Christian Center printed on the stone. Then at the back of the stone was a printed verse, John 4, verse 21 to 42. And the Lord said that he's teaching you to come against intimidation. You know, the oak that just wanted to keep watching rugby, but no one intimidates Prince. No, he did it. specifically the intimidation by a religious spirit. God wants to encourage you that it doesn't matter how big or strong the religious spirit in that town is. You must stay pure in your worship towards God. And you must stay true in your obedience to God. God will bring the increase. Take that promise, guys. You will reap even what you didn't sow. The harvest is ready as long as your hands are up for being laborers. God will use you. Who of the BBC guys that's busy coming into membership and stuff, I'm only speaking to you now, will put up your hand to be laborers? Will you physically put up your hand? We've got some good fishermen here. If each of you catch one and teach them in turn to also reach out to others. Yes, God will use you. True worship and the move of the Spirit is what will break through this religious stronghold that is over the inhabitants of Bethlehem. She's never been here, hey? She hasn't gone down that street with the 88 churches. In this passage, the people got saved because of the testimony of a woman that had a true encounter with Jesus. And I think that's partly where the prophetic comes in. But it continues to say in verse whatever, they said to the woman, it is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves. And we know that this is indeed the Savior of the world. John 4, verse 42. In your reaching out to the community, you must keep it personal and intimate to each person that you reach, so that each person can experience God personally. Your focus mustn't shift from the individual to the masses. You must be faithful and diligent with each individual that you reach out to. And in doing that, God will add the people to you. It will be like a domino effect, where one person's experience with God will encourage others, and they will experience God for themselves, and God will add them to you. You will reap and even reap what you didn't sow, because the glory of God is resting on Bethlehem Christian Center. Be brave and stand against intimidation, stand against religion, and that's in your own hearts too, hey? There's a Pharisee in me, there's a Pharisee in each of us who stand against that stuff in your own heart. Because for you it might seem big, but God says He's bigger, and through Him you will overcome. Powerful, eh? Oh, dankie, Madeleintjie. That's so awesome. Okay. Dankie, Dani. Yeah. So let's look at what a prophetic lifestyle is. This whole, since Wednesday night, we've been stepping out, like hearing God in different ways, and we have heard Him, have we not? I mean, how many of you, your hearts were shaken by the accuracy of things that God said to you, and then later through the weekend got confirmed? How special has it been? Even I can't go to all this stuff, but even if I think of your word, Jackie, and everything about worship, and the walls of Jericho will come down, and then you can take the city, it all just fits, because God's the God who speaks. But now, how do we live that out? Because something that the religious spirit is very happy with is it's charismatic people in the first place, just thinking it is the reformed people that's religious. We don't realize how quickly we pick up religious little habits, eh? So now suddenly it's like, no, I tick the boxes if I'm at church on a Sunday morning, and then I'm at home group or a connect group on a Wednesday night. Then I tick the boxes. But you know what Christianity really is when we look at the New Testament church. Hey, they got together in one another's homes. God added to their numbers daily. I think that's where I see that hospitality things. They met together, they broke bread together, they rejoiced together, they worshiped God together. And in that process, He added to their numbers daily, those who've been saved. I just listened to something of a friend of mine that leads the churches in Mossel Bay, and it's also, Mornay van der Walt. And he was saying, when he was leading a congregation, 3 weeks went past without anyone getting saved. And he was like, something is wrong. Because God said that in the New Testament church, people were added daily. Can you guys get that uncomfortable with a day passing without anyone getting added? Huh? or even a month fasting without anyone getting added? Can you at least get uncomfortable with that? And one of the keys is that we will open our homes, that the life of God will not just be in meetings, that the life of God will overflow right into the most intimate parts of our hearts and the most private parts of our homes, into our little secret shames, into our little habits that should change, and that we'll become less and less religious, because religiosity is hypocrisy. It's putting up a church for Sunday, a face for church on Sunday, and being someone else at home. So it was so powerful. Like, one of the qualifications for elder is hospitality. And, I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, I can see how that's important. But, a way that someone pointed out to me the other day that it's very important is that it's very hard to live a different life at home than at church when people get into your home. And the amount of church leaders that I know that would never let anyone into their house. And I'm thinking, sure, part of being a normal Christian is hospitality. Then that will even help us as we show hospitality that we won't become hypocrites. That are one thing at church, prophesying, praying, but another thing at home. And I again want to commend those of you from BCC that hosted guys this weekend. Like hosting and showing hospitality costs. I'm sure your fridges are emptier. Definitely Donnie and Fred's fridge is not what it used to be after I've stayed with them. But are you not richer in relationships and in moments where you experience God together? See, I want to make the rest of you jealous that couldn't host this time so that you'll host next time. Because I know these guys that came from Joburg and Pretoria they're such a blessing. And I if they haven't been a blessing to you, come. I'm going to tell on them if they weren't a blessing, but I'm sure they were a blessing. So the word hospitality, xenophilos, in the Greek is literally loving strangers. And the first thing that's said about the prophetic, why we prophesy in 1 Corinthians 14, verse 3, is oikodomai, the Greek word that literally means to build into a home. So there's this thing of home and the household of God. This is not a conference center. This is not a preaching center. This is an expression of the household of God, and that expression continues into our homes, right? So why do we want to be hospitable? Why do we want to prophesy in a way that builds people into home? Why do we want to use the gifts to love people? Because God is hospitable. Because God loved us when we were still strangers to Him. Actually, when we were His enemies, He loved us. This morning, He laid a table and He said, everyone, just come. Everyone, just come. Everyone, come. Come, I have a seat at my table. Come sit in my household. And then there's a working out. There's fathers in the house. The elders play that role. And they make sure that we stay pure to the Word of God, that we discipline those who want to continue to sin, and that's a form of love, like I said the other night. We love them by telling them the truth they don't want to hear, and we love one another by being affectionate and encouraging. All those things happen around the table of God. That's why it needs to happen around our tables. So, hospitality is just another way of being like Him. And prophecy is a testimony of Jesus, right? Revelation 19, verse 10. Prophecy is a testimony of Jesus. It is an eyewitness account of Jesus. So when we prophesy, people should see Jesus. And when we show hospitality, that should be an expression of how welcome people are at the table of God, in the household of God. That's where people learn what family looks like, biblical family looks like. That's why also elders, a qualification for elders, is the order in their household, good reputation with outsiders, all these things. And you guys know those qualifications for elders isn't just for elders. The rest of us can carry on like hooligans. You know that, hey? Those are basic Christian way of living. That we will be people who build our even our children, our households. I know you guys are going to get some input on, is it you guys that said you're going to get input on children and raising children and stuff? The reason we do that is because we want people to look at our families and say, oh, that's what God is like. God disciplines those he loves. There's the honoring of the head of the home. There's submission. There's respect. There is affection. There's nurturing. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Do you see the picture that I'm painting? I hope so. So he's building his house. And he's building a house where he can live by his Spirit. Is your home a place that's sick with the presence of God? And do you open your doors like God opened his doors to you? So I'm a really extreme example, but people always have reasons. We all have our reasons why we don't want to invite people into our homes. Sometimes it's because there's things we're ashamed of. There's a lot of like full ashtrays and empty bottles. And some of us just feel, sure, but my house is so small, And in the early days in Josh Gen, because it was a value we lived from the start, very much this, initially for the first year or so, we didn't even have connect groups, home groups. We just were in each other's homes all the time. It helped that a lot of guys that got saved didn't have jobs yet. They had time to be discipled in our homes. We ate together, myself and the one the one lady that was part of the first group when we planted, Julie. We stayed together, and she had an 11-year-old son, and we were very poor, so we would cook a pot of pop, and then invite everyone and say, bring something you like to eat with pop. And then we'll end up actually with a full fridge by the time people left. So wasn't our intention, but that's how it happened. Just to gather people, because we value people, because God values people more than things. So some of you have such beautiful homes, you're scared to let people in because your couches are white. Huh? Let's value what God values. Let's enjoy one another. That is actually, when God says, come sit at the feast, I think the ultimate feast is relationship with Him, relationship with one another. Right? Like I read the psalm this morning where David was saying, my inheritance is so wonderful. And before that, he speaks about his relationship with God and how he delights in the saints in the land. He could have said, my inheritance of my palace and my armies and my stuff and my wives and all these things I have, but he delighted in the relationships God gave him. So is your home a place where people can come and get to know one another? So another thing I love to do, also before I had a lot of money, I lived in a really small flat. So then I called it squash parties. Just invite everyone and squeeze them in. And then I would bake. I actually used a crude word then. I didn't know it was not a good word. So we're not calling it that, but I call it now massive muffin. I said a bit of another Afrikaans word that's not nice. So a massive muffin. So basically a self-raising flour bread that is so big that I know no one's going to go hungry. And then I tell people, you bring something for it. So someone brings butter, and someone brings cheese, and someone brings jam. And then we kite, like they come at 10 for brunch, kite. The one time we did that, and then at about 12:01, we got hungry again, so we ate more of the muffin because it wasn't even halfway through. And then eventually, there were a bunch of guys kiting in my kitchen, which is like a meter, about 2 meters, and a bunch of girls in the lounge, and some girls in my bedroom. And when I wanted to go to the toilet, there was someone sitting on the flap of the toilet and someone sitting on the edge of the bath, and they were busy praying for each other. And my little tiny flat became a place of His glory. I think the last guys left at like 3-4 o'clock that afternoon. 2 of the people were there were my neighbors, a South African guy married to an Austrian girl. She grew up with no faith whatsoever. He was not a believer. They ended up giving their lives to the Lord. And the 2 people praying in the bathroom, I remember just the girl saying like a spirit of self-pity just lifted off her, and she was set free. And that was just a brunch with a massive muffin. And I want to say to you, don't say my house is too small or my house is too snazzy. Because people are valuable. People are valuable. And people will not be properly added to this congregation if they haven't been through your homes. I have this huge privilege of traveling a lot and staying in people's homes. So I connected a little bit with Fred and Donnie before at a conference. I met them in Cape Town. I quickly connected and met their kids, whatever. But we've only become friends when I got to know their dog. And I ate Donnie's amazing sourdough bread. And we had, after we were overtired and the filters were down, we were laughing at stuff and we were talking. I don't think we can really know someone until we've been in their home. Open your home. Open your heart. If there is skeletons in your cupboard, they have to come out at some point. If there is dark, fraught corners, let the Lord's light come in. Let us help one another to become the kind of people who are the same at church and at home, whose homes are as much places of the presence of God than this building is. I'm so off my notes. I can't even remember what I'm talking about. So yes, oikodomie, to build into a home. Another reason why we prophesy is to exhort. To exhort. And I said at the workshop yesterday, it's to call alongside. It's that person that will run with you. That won't just shout instructions to you or tell you what to do, but will say, I'm going to walk out this Christian road with you. You know, if you want to be a true discipler, the best way you can disciple a person is by allowing them to watch your life. You make sure you follow Jesus and you're imitating him, and then they can imitate you as they imitate Christ. And I'm not just talking to guys that's leaders, that's every believer's call. Every believer's call is to follow God in a way that others can follow you. You know, so often when our church was still small, I would want to do something that's not sin, but and I think, what if every single girl in the church at the moment make that choice that I just made? And I think, no, it will damage the church. It won't take us forward. And I go, okay, no, let me rather not do that because of the example I set. Not because I fear people and I'm still got that voice, my mom's voice of wat sal die mense sê. Not fear of man, just purely such a love for his bride that he poured out in my heart that I don't want to do anything that people can't actually follow me in. I don't want to break open, even in secret. Because you guys know what the Bible says, hey? It's not just what people see us do, it's what we do in secret that is a little bit of yeast that can work through the whole dough. So even my choice of that Netflix thing, when they start saying the Lord's name and surname over and over again, I'm thinking, do I want other people to watch this? Then I don't want to watch it. I don't want to break that open because God's house is so precious. I want to do things that's cheering people on to run their race well, to not to give up, and to take hold of Jesus, and to be able to go into glory and get that well done, good and faithful servant, to be called into his kingdom with applause. So, we exhort, and we're calling to one side. We are attentive to one another. We are present in one another's lives. And for that, open your home, open your table. I'm very cheeky, so I've heard all the excuses over the years. So I've heard people say, no, but our kids are small, they have to go to bed, we can't actually have people. Or we can't actually come, I would invite them, they can't come to my house because their kids have to go be put down. So then I go, can I come to your house? And then I'll bring supper. And it's amazing. Yaelin is actually my best example of someone that she doesn't care if you try and keep her out of your heart. She will make her way in. She will, you can have an electrical gate, you can have Rottweilers, you can have double locks on the doors, and an alarm system. And Yaelin would be like, hello, and make her way into your heart. And God needs sneaky people like that. That will, before people even can see Jesus, that they'll see Jesus in us. That they'll expect him to accept them because we accept them. That they'll expect to be welcome in this place because they've been welcome into your homes. that they'll expect to be told the truth from the pulpit and one-on-one, because in your home, the truth is spoken in love. Huh? This is exciting. Your home is one of the key material possessions in this whole congregation. What happens in your home can break open the love of God in every part of this, and then God can add to your numbers daily those who are being saved. The third one in 1 Corinthians 14 verse 3 says, comforter paramution. And we all know, even just talking to Donnie, and I've heard some of the struggles that you guys have been through. Like some of you have been through Aina stuff with good friends. Some of you have been through Aina stuff with your children, with your health. There's been so much that you've endured as a people. And you know how much God has comforted you through those times. Let's be like Him. Let's be those who comfort one another. So we prophesy to comfort. That word is paramution, to speak intimately and tenderly to someone. And often we look at where someone's at in their life. I'm like that. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to tune them. I can't believe they're not listening. I know that person told them, that person, and and I just want to tune them. And then I say, Lord, what must I say to them? And then God is just so kind. Just so kind. I lost patience with someone the other day, and I was saying to the Lord, and I was hoping He'll agree with me, that actually she's with another church now. I'm not going to follow up with her. I'm like done. And the Lord just looked at me. You know when God just looks at you, hey? He's like, He's not going to agree. And I'm like, yes, Lord, what? And He said, be patient with her. I've been patient with you. So God is asking us, freely we've received. We've been comforted by Him. Let's comfort others. Let's comfort others. He's received us into His home. Let us receive others into our homes. So something similar to that happened to me the other day. I was doing a workshop with a big group, actually a year ago or so, in Cape Town. And I saw a guy, and I could clearly see, since when I saw him last, when he was walking with the Lord, I could see he's walked through the valley of the shadow of death. He just looked old. I just knew he fell back into sin and whatever. And I said, Lord, please give me a word for him. And you know what God said? I could just see this guy is backslidden. He's not doing well. God said, I wrote it down here. Let me see so I don't lie. You have been found faithful, God said to this guy. You are my friend. And he just wept. And the guys that love him and has been helping him to come back into church were just weeping because they knew and he knew that he hasn't been faithful. But that's just what God's like. He gives us what we don't deserve. And He calls us faithful and cheers us on that way so that we can grow into that faithfulness. And He said, you're my friend. So that was the end of that. And I hardly remembered this instance, but now a year later, I was at the congregation again. And the pastor said to me, do you remember you walked on the beach about 6 months ago or something, and you spotted a guy and you shouted at him, shouted something at him. And I am someone that on a regular basis shouts stuff that I get in trouble for. I'm not, the distance between the brain and the mouth is very short. The filters aren't great. I don't know if any one of you suffer from that foot in the mouth disease, but I definitely, if I get corrected by people that love me, it's because of something I said. I promise you that it just happens often. But anyway, I was walking on the beach, just having time with the Lord, and I saw this guy. And all I remembered, I couldn't even remember his name. He's quite far off. I just remembered God called him friend. So I said, hey, friend of God. I waved at him, and he kind of waved back, and I carried on walking. And then his pastor told me what happened that day is he went to stand on the beach. And at that point, he has backslidden, come back to church, but his wife's left him. Then his wife was unfaithful to him, so he decided to have affairs. And at that point, he was having an affair with a married woman. And he felt so disgusted with himself. And he felt so horrifically shamed. And he was standing on the beach, considering, because he also came years ago out of a background of drugs, considering what drugs he would need to take and then to walk into the sea and kill himself. And I walked past and I shouted, friend. I called him friend of God. God called him friend. And he's doing so well. His name is Warren. And when you in Cape Town meet him, he's this tall, big guy. He's doing well. His life has fallen apart as a mess, but he is back with Jesus. And now he can be restored. And God called him faithful, and God called him friend. So guys, whether you don't walk on the beach, whether you're walking around a dam, whether you be so full of the words of Jesus and the voice of Jesus that when you shout something at someone, it's what he speaks over them. And that word of comfort can take them out of a place of despair into a place of effectiveness for Jesus again. That is the power of the gift of prophecy. But it was never meant to be, we've never been called to be rolling stones that roll through one church after the other and like shout prophecies at people or whatever. We were called to be a prophetic people who speaks a different language to the world, who speaks words of edification, exhortation, and encouragement, and comfort. A people who do not just speak words, but open our lives, for our lives to become a place where people are strengthened and built into a home. For our homes to become a reflection of what God's house is like. Can you see now why it's so important that we're not just good church people? That we actually love your husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and laid down his life for you. That your wives respect your husband and honor him and make his job of leading his family a joy. Your children that you know that your obedience to your dad, even if he annoys you and you think he's uncool and he wears the wrong socks with the wrong tackies, that your honoring of your dad shows something of how honor is due to the father. And then dads, the way you don't exasperate your children by nagging at them and just being, but how you lead your children well and the way you love your wife makes them feel secured. As all those things fall into place, a prophetic lifestyle speaks of Jesus, speaks of what the household of God looks like. And that kind of homes that then together to this household, God can daily add those who are being saved. Does it make sense to you? Do you see that it's so much more than just saying, Lord, give me an encouraging word for someone? That you'll open your hearts wide, first to God and then to one another, and then to those that God adds, those that you go fetch. The woman at the well, it was a word of knowledge. It was a gift of the Spirit that God used when he spoke to her. And she took that moment with Jesus and ran off with such joy. And told people who wanted to hear and people who didn't want to hear. And just splurged out a testimony of an intimate moment with Jesus. And then they became so curious that they came to look for themselves. And then they believed, not just because of what she said, but because they've encountered him themselves. Can you be a people who have so many Jesus moments in your homes and include so many other people that they themselves, like I love the way the Bible actually says, God added to their numbers daily people that were being saved. Some of them arrived and they kind of were interested. Some came hungry. Some came with lots of questions. Some came believing but not yet repenting. And then as they were added, they believed, they repented, they were baptized, they received the Holy Spirit. Because there were people like you and you and you who were willing to include them into your family to walk with them.